Day 1. Your body wakes up. You step outside, or perhaps you walk through your neighborhood or along a path you know well. You are not rushing. You are not pushing. You are simply moving at a pace that feels comfortable and sustainable, a pace where you could still hold a conversation if someone were walking beside you. And from the very first minute, your body begins to respond in ways that are far more complex than most people realize. The first thing that happens is that your muscles begin to demand more fuel. The large muscles in your legs, your quadriceps at the front of your thighs, your hamstrings at the back, your calves, your glutes, all of these begin contracting and releasing rhythmically as you walk. To power this movement, they send a signal to your body that they need more oxygen and more glucose. The demand goes up immediately. Your heart responds. Within the first few minutes of walking, your heart rate begins to rise, not dramatically, but noticeably. Your heart is a muscle, and like every other muscle in your body, it responds to demand by working harder. It begins beating faster and with slightly more force, pushing more blood out with each beat. This increased blood flow carries oxygen from your lungs to your working muscles and carries waste products, primarily carbon dioxide, back out. Your lungs respond as well. Your breathing deepens slightly. The tiny air sacs in your lungs, called alveoli, become more active, exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide more rapidly. If you have ever noticed that you feel slightly more awake and alert after even a short walk, this is a big part of why. Your brain is receiving more oxygenated blood than it was when you were sitting still. Now, here is something that surprises many people about day 1. Within the first 10 to 15 minutes of walking, your body begins releasing a group of chemicals called endorphins. These are your body's natural mood-lifting compounds, the same chemicals associated with what some people call a runner's high, though in walking, the effect is gentler and more gradual. By the time you finish your 30 minutes on day 1, you may notice a quiet sense of well-being that was not there before you started. A slight lifting of tension, a feeling of having done something good. That is not your imagination. That is biology. There is one more thing happening on day 1 that is worth knowing about. As your muscles work, they release a substance called lactic acid, a byproduct of energy production. On the first day, if you have not been very active recently, you may feel some mild muscle fatigue in the hours that follow your walk. Your legs may feel slightly heavy. This is completely normal and is actually a sign that your muscles are responding to a new stimulus. By the end of the week, this feeling will have diminished significantly as your muscles adapt. But on day 1, it is simply your body saying, I notice what you did, and I am beginning to adjust. Day 2, your heart begins to adapt. The second day, you lace up your shoes again, and something interesting has already changed, even though you may not feel it directly. Your cardiovascular system began adapting overnight. Here is something worth understanding about how the heart responds to exercise. Every time you ask your heart to work harder, as you did yesterday, it does not simply work harder in the moment and then forget about it. It actually begins making structural and functional adjustments that carry forward. Scientists call this cardiac adaptation, and it begins earlier than most people expect. By day 2, your heart may already be slightly more efficient at its work. The stroke volume, the amount of blood your heart pumps with each beat, may have increased very slightly. This means your heart can deliver the same amount of oxygen to your muscles with a little less effort than it did on day 1. It is a tiny change on the second day, but it is the beginning of a process that, if you continue walking consistently, can produce meaningful improvements in cardiovascular efficiency over weeks and months. There is something else happening in your blood vessels on day 2 that is equally important. When you walked yesterday, your blood vessels experienced something called shear stress, the physical force of blood moving through them more quickly than usual. This shear stress is actually a healthy signal. It prompts the inner lining of your blood vessels, a tissue called the endothelium, to produce a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is one of the most important substances in cardiovascular health. It helps blood vessels relax and widen, it helps prevent the buildup of substances along vessel walls, and it helps regulate blood pressure. On day 2, Your endothelium is producing slightly more nitric oxide than it was before you started walking. The effect is subtle at this point, but it is real and it is building. Many people also notice that their energy levels feel slightly better on day 2 than they did at the same time the previous week. Part of this is the endorphin effect carrying forward. Part of it is improved sleep, because physical activity, even moderate walking, has well-documented effects on sleep quality that can begin showing up after just 1 or 2 sessions. If you woke up feeling slightly more rested this morning, there's a good chance yesterday's walk had something to do with it. Day 3. Your muscles and joints find their rhythm. By the 3rd day, something has shifted in how your body experiences the walk itself. The mild muscle fatigue you may have felt on day 1 has largely resolved. Your muscles have begun to adapt, not by becoming dramatically stronger yet, but by becoming more efficient at the work they are being asked to do. The enzymes inside your muscle cells that help convert fuel into energy have become slightly more active. Your muscles are getting better at using oxygen, which means the walk feels a little less demanding than it did 2 days ago. This is one of the most encouraging things about the human body. It adapts remarkably quickly to consistent movement. The adaptation does not take weeks to begin. It begins within days. Now let us talk about something that many adults over 65 think about more than almost anything else when it comes to physical activity: joints. There is a common belief that walking is hard on the joints, particularly the knees and hips. And for people with certain conditions, it is true that some caution is warranted. But for most people, the science tells a more nuanced and actually quite encouraging story. Your joints are surrounded by cartilage, the smooth, cushioning tissue that allows bones to move past each other without friction. This cartilage does not have its own blood supply. Instead, it receives nutrients through a process called diffusion. Nutrients seep into the cartilage when pressure is applied and released, like a sponge being squeezed and released repeatedly. Walking is one of the most natural and effective ways to pump nutrients into your joint cartilage. Every step you take applies gentle, rhythmic pressure to the cartilage in your knees, hips, and ankles, and then releases it. This cyclical compression and decompression is actually how cartilage stays nourished and healthy. By day 3, your joints have experienced 2 days of this gentle, beneficial pressure cycle. The synovial fluid that lubricates your joints, think of it as the oil in an engine, has been stimulated to distribute more evenly through movement. For many people, this is the day when joint stiffness that was present on day 1 begins to noticeably ease. Mornings may feel a little smoother. The first few steps after sitting may feel less stiff and more fluid. This is not a coincidence. This is your joints responding to the movement they were designed for. Day 4. Your blood sugar responds. Here is something that many people do not associate with walking, but that researchers consider one of its most important effects, particularly for adults in the 65-plus age group. By the 4th day of consistent walking, your body's ability to manage blood sugar may be meaningfully improving. Let me explain why this matters. As we age, the cells in our muscles and liver can become less sensitive to insulin, the hormone that allows glucose to enter cells and be used for energy. When cells become resistant to insulin's signal, blood sugar levels can rise higher than they should after meals and stay elevated longer. This is a process that affects a very large portion of older adults, often without obvious symptoms. Walking has a remarkable effect on this process, and it works through 2 separate mechanisms. The first mechanism is immediate. When your muscles are actively contracting during a walk, they can absorb glucose from the bloodstream directly, without needing insulin to facilitate the process. This is a completely separate pathway from the usual insulin-dependent route. Simply by moving your muscles, you are helping to clear glucose from your blood independently of insulin. Research consistently shows that blood sugar levels are lower after a walk than they would have been without one, even in people who have significant insulin resistance. The second mechanism builds over time. Consistent physical activity, including regular walking, gradually improves insulin sensitivity in muscle cells. The cells become more responsive to insulin's signal, which means less insulin is needed to do the same job. By day 4, this longer-term adaptation has had enough time to begin showing meaningful effects. If you or someone you love monitors blood sugar levels, the readings after meals on day 4 may look a little better than they did at the start of the week. The improvement will continue as long as the walking continues. There is another benefit happening on day 4 that connects to blood sugar in an interesting way: your energy levels. When blood sugar is better regulated, the dramatic energy swings that some people experience in the afternoon, the sluggishness, the sudden tiredness, tend to become less pronounced. More stable blood sugar means more stable energy. And by day 4, many people begin to feel this difference in a way that is noticeable and welcome. Day 5, your brain changes. We are at the midpoint of our second half of the week, and by day 5, something is happening inside your skull that is one of the most exciting findings in modern neuroscience. Your brain is growing. Not in the dramatic sense, your skull is not changing, but at the cellular level, walking is stimulating the production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Scientists sometimes call BDNF miracle grow for the brain, because its job is to support the growth, maintenance, and survival of brain cells and to help create new connections between them. BDNF is produced in response to aerobic exercise. Walking, especially sustained, rhythmic walking like your 30-minute morning sessions, is one of the most reliable triggers for BDNF production that researchers have identified. And by day 5, with 4 consecutive days of walking behind you, your brain has been receiving consistent BDNF stimulation for nearly a week. What does this mean in practical terms? Research suggests that higher BDNF levels are associated with better memory, sharper thinking, improved mood, and a reduced risk of cognitive decline over time. The hippocampus, the part of the brain most closely associated with memory formation, appears to be particularly responsive to BDNF. Studies have shown that regular aerobic exercise can actually increase the volume of the hippocampus over time, which is remarkable given that this region tends to shrink slightly with normal aging. On day 5, you are not going to notice your hippocampus growing, but you may notice something subtler and equally meaningful: a sense of mental clarity that feels a little sharper than it did at the beginning of the week, thinking that feels slightly more fluid, a mood that is a little more stable and a little more positive. This is not a coincidence. This is your brain responding to one of the most powerful things you can do for it: moving your body consistently. There is one more thing happening on day 5 that connects to the brain in a different way. Walking outdoors, particularly in daylight, helps regulate your circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock. Exposure to natural light in the morning helps set the timing of your sleep-wake cycle, which influences the production of melatonin in the evening. Many people who begin walking regularly report that their sleep improves noticeably. By day 5, if you have been walking in the morning light, you may find that you fall asleep more easily and wake feeling more rested than you did at the start of the week. Day 6, your bones and immune system get involved. By the 6th day, 2 systems of your body that you might not immediately associate with walking are showing meaningful responses. Let us start with your bones. Bone health is something that becomes increasingly important as we age, and for good reason. After the age of 65, the natural balance between bone formation and bone breakdown can shift in a direction that leads to reduced bone density over time. This is a gradual process, but its consequences, increased fragility, increased fracture risk, are significant. Walking is a weight-bearing exercise. This means that with every step, your skeleton is supporting your body weight against gravity. This might sound like stress on the bones, and it is, but it is exactly the kind of stress that bones need to stay strong. When your bones experience the mechanical loading of walking, specialized cells called osteoblasts receive a signal to build new bone tissue. The response is slow and cumulative over weeks and months. You are not dramatically changing your bone density in 6 days. But by day 6, your bones have received 6 consecutive days of the weight-bearing stimulus that tells them to maintain and build rather than simply break down. Research consistently shows that regular walking is associated with better bone density, particularly in the hip, one of the most important areas for fracture prevention in older adults. Every day you walk is a day your bones receive the signal they need. Now let us talk about your immune system, because what happens here by day 6 is genuinely fascinating. Moderate exercise, and 30 minutes of walking falls squarely in the moderate category, has a well-documented positive effect on immune function. During and after each walk, your body increases the circulation of immune cells through your bloodstream. Natural killer cells, T cells, and other key players in your immune defense are mobilized and distributed more effectively when you exercise regularly. There is a concept in immunology called immune surveillance, the ongoing process by which your immune system patrols the body looking for abnormal cells, pathogens, and threats. Regular moderate exercise appears to enhance this surveillance. By day 6, your immune system has had 6 days of enhanced circulation, 6 days of more active immune cell deployment, and 6 days of the anti-inflammatory signaling that moderate exercise produces. This does not mean walking makes you immune to illness, but the research is clear that people who exercise moderately and consistently have better immune function than those who do not, and that this effect is particularly meaningful for older adults whose immune systems naturally become less efficient over time. Day 7. Your body has learned something new. The 7th morning, you walk out the door one more time, and something feels different. Not just in your body, but in your relationship with this habit. By day 7, something important has happened at the neurological level. Your brain has begun encoding this morning walk as a routine. The neural pathways associated with the habit, the cue, the behavior, the reward, have been activated 7 times in a row. Research on habit formation suggests that this kind of consistent repetition is exactly how durable habits are built. The walk is beginning to feel less like a decision and more like simply what you do in the morning. That shift, subtle as it sounds, is one of the most powerful things that has happened all week. But let us look at the full picture of what your body has accumulated over these 7 days. Your heart is more efficient. The stroke volume, the amount of blood pumped per beat, has increased slightly. Your resting heart rate may already be 1 or 2 beats per minute lower than it was on day 1. These numbers sound small, but in cardiovascular terms, they represent a meaningful direction of travel. Your blood vessels are producing more nitric oxide. The endothelium, that inner lining of your arteries and veins, is healthier and more responsive than it was a week ago. Blood pressure readings may be modestly improved, particularly if they were elevated at the start. Your blood sugar regulation has improved. The muscles you have been using are more insulin sensitive than they were on day 1. The post-meal glucose spikes that can quietly accumulate damage over years are being blunted by your body's increased capacity to manage glucose. Your joints are moving better. The cartilage in your knees, hips, and ankles has received 7 days of nutritive compression and release. The synovial fluid is distributed more evenly. Morning stiffness has likely eased. Your brain has more BDNF circulating than it did a week ago. Your mood is more stable. Your sleep is likely better. Your mental clarity may have improved in ways that are subtle but real. Your immune system is more active and better regulated. Your bones have received 7 days of the weight-bearing stimulus they need to maintain density. Your muscles are more efficient at using oxygen and fuel. And your body, all of these systems together, has begun to learn what it feels like to move every day. It has begun to expect it. And when your body expects something beneficial and receives it consistently, the benefits compound. 7 days of 30-minute walks will not transform your health overnight. That is not what this video has ever claimed. But 7 days is enough time for your body to show you clearly and measurably that it responds to this simple act of care. And that is worth more than any dramatic promise. Practical notes for getting the most from your walks. Before we finish, let me share a few thoughts that may help you get the most out of this practice, particularly if you are just getting started or returning to regular activity after a period of rest. The pace matters more than the distance. You are looking for what exercise scientists call moderate intensity, a pace at which you feel like you are working, but you could still speak in short sentences if someone were beside you. You should not be gasping for breath. You should not be strolling so slowly that your heart rate barely rises. Somewhere in between is the zone where the most benefit happens. Consistency matters more than perfection. If a day comes when 30 minutes is not possible, 20 minutes is far better than nothing. If weather or circumstances prevent an outdoor walk, walking indoors, through your home, through a mall, through a community center, counts just as much. Footwear deserves attention. Supportive, well-fitting shoes make a meaningful difference in joint comfort, particularly for the knees and hips. If your current shoes are old or unsupportive, investing in a good pair of walking shoes is one of the most practical steps you can take. If you have any health conditions, particularly heart conditions, joint conditions, balance concerns, or if you've been very sedentary for an extended period, please speak with your doctor before beginning a new walking routine. In most cases, your doctor will be enthusiastic, but it is always wise to have that conversation first. And finally, if walking with someone else is an option, consider it seriously. The social dimension of walking with a friend, a family member, or a walking group adds an additional layer of well-being that the research consistently supports. Connection and community are health factors too, and they are particularly meaningful for older adults. Final summary: 7 days, 30 minutes each morning, and the changes that happen inside your body during that week touch nearly every major system: your heart, your blood vessels, your muscles, your joints, your bones, your blood sugar, your immune system, your brain, and your sleep. None of these changes are dramatic in 7 days, but all of them are real, all of them are measurable, and all of them point in the same direction, toward a body that is stronger, more resilient, more efficient, and more capable of supporting the life you want to live. Walking is not a miracle cure, but it may be the closest thing to it that science has ever found. Not because it does one thing brilliantly, but because it does so many things, all at once, all naturally, all for free, and because the human body was quite literally designed to respond to it. 30 minutes, every day, 7 days. That is where it starts.